We're one race down in the round of 12, and we have two to go, which is Talladega and the Roval. Now, a long time ago, Talladega was considered the biggest wild card in the playoffs. Whether that is still true, I don't know. We have a lot of other varying wild cards now. I mean, you could argue the Roval is more of a wild card, and that's the elimination race. But regardless, we'll look at the drivers and their chances to actually make the round of 8. So we'll start off with, of course, the points leader, William Byron. He's currently 34 to the good over the cut line. Obviously has probably the best chance out of everybody right now to make the playoffs into the round of 8. In the history of the round of 12, in this playoff format, there has been 12 other drivers who have also had 34 more points going into the second race of the chase. Every single one of them advanced. Now, that's not a guarantee he makes it, obviously. There's a first time for everything. But to ensure that he has probably the best odds to make it, let's look at his last 3 Dega finishes. He has a 7th, a 2nd, and a 7th. That's pretty good. And even if we say he wrecks at Dega, let's look at his Roval finishes. 2nd, 16th, and 11th. He finished 2nd there last year. And overall, his plate races this year, you got to remember he won the Daytona 500 earlier this season. He has a 7th and a 9th. Of course, that 7th coming at Talladega, the 9th coming at the Fall Atlanta race. And his worst finish, the 27th, which was the Fall Daytona race where he got involved in that wreck where Josh Berry flipped. His road course finishes are also pretty impressive. He won the first road course race of the year as well at Coda. And then it's a little bit feast or famine. 30th at Sonoma, 8th at the Chicago Street Course, and then 34th at Watkins Glen, even though he was running roughly top 10 before. Pretty bad pit call. Similar to Byron, Ryan Blaney also has a very good track history at Talladega. His last finish there is a 20th, but he won this race last year and he finished 2nd the year prior to that, or the spring race, I should say. His Roval finishes aren't as impressive, a 12th, a 26th, and a 9th. He did win the 2018 Roval race, but that was under circumstances, and the track has been reconfigured greatly since then. And overall, his plate finishes this year have been all over the place. 30th in the Daytona 500, 2nd in the spring Atlanta race. Obviously, he was almost won that race. A 20th, a 29th, and a 3rd at the Atlanta race later on. So outside of the 2 Atlanta races, he really has not had that much luck on plate tracks. Regardless, his road course finishes as well. If you want to talk about him going to the Roval, 12th, 7th, 10th, 38th. Overall, I say he has a pretty good shot at making it as well. I don't think it would take some sort of bizarre circumstances for him to miss this. Just like the man who's tied with him in points, Christopher Bell. Also, 28 points ahead, so he has 18 for 19 with people who are 28 or more points to the good in the round of 12 at this point. His Dega finishes are a little worrisome. He finished 38th here in the spring, but a 14th and an 8th in the 2 races last year shows relative consistency. His Roval record's a lot better, a 15th last year, but he did win the race in 2022 to advance himself into the round of 8, and an 8th in 2022, or in 2021, sorry. And then his plate finishes this year. Again, he's had a lot of highs, but then some lows. He finished 3rd in the Daytona 500, then 34th at Atlanta, 38th at Talladega, and then another 3rd and a 4th. And his road course finishes are kind of the same, a 2nd, a 9th, a 37th, and a 14th. Bell has made the round of 4 the last 2 years, so I don't really see any reason to doubt his capability to hold on to a 28-point lead. He was probably the fastest car at Kansas. 4th place in points is where things start getting interesting. Kyle Larson's only 18 points to the good. 26 of 29 people who have been in that position have advanced. Overall, Larson's finishes at Dega in the last 3 races have not been spectacular. A 21st, a 15th, a 33rd. And his Roval finishes, while he won the race 3 years ago, have also been a 35th and 13th. I remember that 35th, he actually got eliminated because of that. It was a mechanical failure. His overall 2024 plate finishes are an 11th, 32nd, 21st, 21st, and 37th. His only top 10, actually, on the 2 track types we have left is his win earlier this year at Sonoma. Outside of that, his road course finishes are 17th, 39th, and 12th. While I'm not super concerned over Kyle Larson because I think he can just gain enough points to actually put himself there across stages and so on and so forth, with the way he's performed at these next 2 track types, I would not think he is a guaranteed lock-in, especially with how this year's been. Next is Denny Hamlin, who's only 11 points to the good. And people in that position only make it 34 of 40 times. So 6 times someone has missed. Hamlin's last 3 Dega finishes, 37th, 3rd, and 17th. Kind of similar to his last 3 Roval finishes, 37th, 13th, and 5th. His 2024 plate races have been a 19th, 23rd, 37th, 38th, and 24th, along with his road course finishes of 14th, 38th, 30th, and 23rd. Not great, but maybe good enough to just advance. He can't have any errors. He's got to run up near the front at Dega. He's got to comprehend people gaining points on him. If everybody gains 10 points on him in the stages, and he loses 10 points to the cut line through those first 2 stages, he's 1 point to the good in finishing position. He's kind of snuck in above this driver, who is probably the sneakiest in the field this year, Alex Bowman. Only 8 points above the cut line. And surprisingly, at only 8 points above the cut line at this point, 36 of 44 people have actually made the chase through this point. Bowman has had okay success at Dega, a 5th, a 28th, and a 13th in the last 3 finishes. The Roval is where he really performs well. An 8th in 2023, a 10th in 2021, and an 8th in 2020. We skip over 2022. He missed that race while he was injured. And if you go all the way back to when he first started running at the Roval, he has never finished outside the top 10. His plate finishes this year have also been pretty good. A 2nd, 27th, 5th, 16th, and 5th. And his road course finishes have been underratedly very consistent. A 4th, a 15th, a 1st, and an 18th. No low marks, which is what he needs to do to keep transferring through these rounds. Overall, I think he's probably the dark horse of this. I don't think he's a surefire lock, and definitely things go very haywire very quickly for him. But if he can just keep sneaking these decent runs in, who's going to stop him? 7th is Chase Elliott, only 4 points above the cut line. In this position, 40 of 49 drivers have made it to the next round. And his last 3 Dega finishes are kind of like Bowman's, consistent, a 15th, a 7th, and a 12th. And his last 3 Roval finishes, while you remember him being the road course king, are 9th, 20th, and 12th. His plate finishes this year are what you need to have in the chase in general, a 4th, a 15th, a 15th, a 36th, and an 8th. And his road course races, while he was used to be considered the road course king, these have been anything but royal. A 16th, a 4th, a 21st, and a 19th this year on the road courses. Yikes. It's going to be tight for him overall. I mean, I wouldn't count him out. He could strike that road course magic, but I mean, he has not won on a road course since 2022. He's only really won 1 race in the last 2 years in general, and he's very consistent. He just needs to execute. Just needs to continue. Do that top 20 run he was doing earlier this year. Tied with Chase in points is 8th place Joey Logano. His last 3 Dega finishes have not been great. Logano used to be known to be a really good plate driver, a 19th, a 24th, and a 30th in his last 3 Dega finishes. His last 3 Roval finishes are actually better, a 5th, an 18th, and a 7th. And if we go look through his plate results from this year, while he won the most recent plate race at Atlanta, he has a 32nd, 28th, 19th, and 31st outside of that win. Not great. His road course finishes are not a whole lot better. An 11th, a 21st, a 23rd, and a 15th. And Logano is one of those guys where he's going to need probably something to go his way. They just haven't shown the speed this year. Yes, they had the one win at the Atlanta Oval, and they won at Nashville. But Nashville, both of those races weren't really on his outright pace, more due to the fact that they just kind of found themselves in the right position at the right time, which is what you need to do. I'm not going to discredit that. The driver with probably the biggest threat to actually jump above the cut line is the regular season champion, Tyler Reddick. Now, this is where the odds drop drastically. In his position, only 3 of 8 have ever actually made it back into the chase, and only happened twice on points. Yes, at only 4 points below the cut line, only twice has someone flipped it and got back in. We have never seen a regular season champion make a round of 12 exit. They always at least make it to the round of 8. After Truex almost missed last year in the round of 16, it's looking like Reddick might be the first guy to actually miss in the round of 12. His last 3 Dega races, obviously we are going to talk about how he won the last Dega race, and he could very well sweep. The only thing is, though, the last driver who did sweep the Dega races was Jeff Gordon in 2007. It's been 17 years since someone swept Dega. It's been a while. Last 3 Roval finishes, 6th, 8th, and 2nd. So he has a lot of good results at these next 2 tracks. But if you take a look at his plate record outside of that Dega win this year, 29th, 30th, 28th, and 6th. Not really a good record. His road course finishes are much better. I think this is where you want to see him actually perform well. His actual shot is probably going to be at the Roval. A 5th and 8th, a 2nd and 27th. Now for some of the long shots here. 10th in points is Daniel Suarez. 14 back. Just like Reddick, drivers in this position only make it out of this 3 of 8 times. Of course, only twice on points. The last 3 Dega finishes for Daniel Suarez was a 26th, a 10th, and a 9th. His last 3 Roval finishes were a 33rd, 36th, and 13th. Both not great records, especially that Roval one. Makes it so he's probably going to have to win and be in at Talladega. His other finishes, though, 34th, 26th, 40th, and then, of course, he finished 2nd in the Fall Atlanta race. His road course finishes this year are okay. A 31st, but then a 14th, 11th, and 13th. Definitely not bad. But if you're going to make up a 14-point deficit, you need to be better than that. 11th is Chase Briscoe, 25 points below the cut line. Only once in 3 occasions has a driver this far back, this early on in the round, made it into the round of 8. They had to win, though, to do it. They did not point their way in. So you look at Briscoe's runs here. 12th, 13th, and 4th at Dega in his last 3 attempts. A 28th, and 9th, and 22nd at the Roval. Remember, he did win the first ever Roval Xfinity race, so he has that going for him. In terms of just plate finishes this year, a 10th, a 31st, a 12th, 14th, and 38th. And then his road course finishes this year, 13th, 34th, 32nd, and 6th. It's going to be basically a win in your end. I don't see him, unless there is catastrophes and he just runs 2nd every race. And last but not least in standings is Austin Cindric, 29 points back. Only twice has a driver found himself this far back this early on around the 12, and only once has a driver won to advance, and it was Christopher Bell in 2022 when he won the Roval race. Now Cindric, you think about it at first, hey, he's a pretty good plate driver. He runs for one of the best plate organizations in the sport, and hey, he's a good road course driver. Surely this is going to favor him a little bit. But you look at his results in the last few races here. Last 3 Dega finishes, 23rd, 5th, and 26th. Not great. And his only 2 Roval finishes were a 25th and a 21st. Never finished top 20 in the Roval. Coupling that with his plate finishes this year, he only has 1 top 5, 2 top 10s, a 4th and a 10th, and then a 22nd, 23rd, and 18th. And his road course finishes this year, only 1 top 10. An 18th, 22nd, 15th are the other ones, and that top 10 is a 10th. So Cindric is really looking at the worst case scenario right now, which makes sense. He is last in points, but he does not have a lot of good runs forward for him here in the chase. It's going to be tough. It's going to be difficult. But I think if he can pull off a win anywhere, it's going to be at Talladega. It's really his best shot to win and advance. I guess that'll do it. That's all 12 drivers' fortunes heading into Talladega. Who do you think will make the round of 8? Put it down in the comments below. Right down there. Other than that, hope people have a wonderful day, and I'll see you people in the future. Take care.